F124 Driver Career Mode Season 1, Round number 8, the Canadian Grand Prix. That is what we're up to, racing in Canada, Montreal, one of my favourite tracks to race at in the F1 game. I really just like the track. I think it's a fun track to drive. We actually don't have any upgrades. I'm not putting any upgrades on the car going into this weekend because we didn't really have enough R&D points to do anything, at least that I wanted to do. So yeah, no points going on to the car this weekend. We have dropped down below Ferrari and Mercedes again, but once again it's still ridiculously close there between mainly, you know, us three: Ferrari, Aston and Mercedes, and Red Bull pulling away from McLaren a little bit out front. But you know, we've seen track dependent, you know, different drivers, different teams having better cars, so it's all just really close all the way around there, really, with quite a big gap from that top 5 though down to the bottom 5 teams as usual. Into Q1 here, and this was a track that I was interested to figure out what the ERS was going to be like, because, you know, it's no secret that in this series I've had a little bit of trouble adapting to kind of the new ERS system, and this is a track a lot of this track is full throttle, so, you know, very easy to use up your ERS. As Q1 we don't actually get an amazing lap, we only ended up P14, so we only just, by the skin of our teeth, by a tenth of a second, we only just make it out of Q1. So a little bit scary there, just not quite getting the lap together. But yeah, because it is such a flat out track, you use a lot of ERS, and that is the case with this one. And it is a little bit of a struggle that I have throughout this weekend, just figuring out when to deploy the ERS. Mainly in the race. For qualifying, you can pretty much just flatten the battery and it's not really an issue. But for the race, yeah, it is quite difficult, and maybe that's something I need to look into a bit more on, how to properly manage ERS, because I don't think I'm doing it the best, but I don't know. Q2, everybody's very close apart from Norris, who gaps me by 4/10 of a second, just over 4/10 to be P1 at the end of that session. I ended up P2 though, so much better lap from me, made up about 7/10 I think, based on my Q1 time, and was in P2 there. Now Q3 came around, this session started off, got into Q3, and I had a cooling system fault, so I had to wait about 2 minutes before I came out on track. Now the rain was expected to come at the end of qualifying, and as you can see, the clouds are very dark. By the time I got out on the track, as you can see here, it is very dark, but it is still dry. But I think it's just about as we head through this corner here that, there you go, drop down the windscreen, or down the visor I guess. The rain it's very light, it's only a couple of drops, but it is starting here as I have a bit of a moment over that corner, maybe also the turbulent air from Verstappen ahead, but you can see now the droplets on the visor on the screen are starting to become more prevalent, and the grip is definitely going away from me. And that issue with the cooling system at the start of the session, where I had to wait 2 minutes, may cost me a decent run here. You can see that you've got Alexander Albon, who's made it into Q3, really good result from him. Can't remember who it was, I think it was actually Oscar Piastri in the McLaren, didn't make it into Q3, so very unfortunate for him. So to have Albon there, we should at least be ahead of him, but we crossed the line, and it's only P10 for us. We're about half a second off Albon, we're 1.9 seconds, almost 2 seconds off the pole position time set by George Russell, and it's a Mercedes 1-2 here for Canadian Grand Prix qualifying. Verstappen in third, Alonso's at least got a good lap in for fourth, but we're going to start 10th because of that issue at the start of Q3, so we'll have to see what we can do in this race. It's going to be dry for the race, so hopefully we can get a good result here in Canada. But let's wait and see. It's a Mercedes 1-2 for this race.
Here in Montreal, lights out is quickly approaching on this artificial island originally built for the World Fair in 1967. Now it's used for a World's Fair of a different kind, ever since Formula One first arrived here. We're back in Montreal for the Canadian Grand Prix. If you want flat-out racing, you've come to the right place this weekend, as it's full throttle for 59% of this 2.7-mile circuit, peaking at around 210 miles per hour going into the final chicane. But that speed requires discipline, and there are more than a few close walls here just waiting to punish drivers with a heavy right foot. So with the race not far away from starting, here's what today's grid rundown looks like. George Russell will begin today's event in pole position, and it's Lewis Hamilton alongside. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Verstappen, Fernando Alonso, Norris, Perez, Sainz, Leclerc, Albon, Shaw, Ocon, Tsunoda, Oscar Piastri, Gasly, Ricciardo, Joe, Magnussen, Bottas, Sargent, and Nico Hülkenberg rounds off the grid. And with lights out just moments away, it's time to go down to the track.
Here we go then for the Canadian Grand Prix, starting from P10 on the grid. Can we make some positions here in this race? Lights out and away we go. We're starting on the medium compound tyres. Leclerc has a pretty slow getaway from ahead of us, so we get ahead of him into turn one. Albon though is going for a massive dive bomb. It's 3 wide with him, Norris and Sainz in through turn one and turn two. We're still side by side with Charles Leclerc here. He's on the inside of the corner. We're on the outside. We want to try and get past him here. Still side by side. A little bit of contact with Albon up ahead, but we managed to just about skirt ourselves past Charles Leclerc. So we do get up a position into P9, but Albon's had a mega start there, getting, well, he's only managed to get forward one position to P8, but yeah, he was hounding Sainz and Norris for P6 at the start there. We just continue on for this first lap with these guys behind. Norris maybe struggling a little bit because he's on the hard compound tyres. I believe it was both McLarens once again, just like last race I think it was, or maybe the race before. I think it was last race. Both McLarens went for the hard compound tyres when everybody else went for the mediums. Oh no, sorry, it was Imola, wasn't it? It was Imola, because we had there was that crash, the red flag at the start, and that completely screwed over both McLarens. They both ended up finishing outside the points. This time they've also gone to the hards again. I think it might have been the Alpines as well, also started on the hards. There was definitely another team that also started on hards, but everybody else on the mediums. And after this first lap, haven't really been able to put a charge onto Alex Albon here, and already after one lap down to, well, 40% battery now, so showing that battery is used up pretty quickly here. At the start from the front of the grid, and Hamilton actually got the better start of the two Mercedes on the front row and is already side by side with his younger teammate through turn one and turn two. And Russell's going to try and fight this now to the next section, though, of course, a big rivalry between these two, but it is Hamilton who will lead after that first sector, and he gets ahead of his teammate to lead this Canadian Grand Prix. He hasn't won a race since 2021. Was it like Brazil or something? 2021. Hasn't won a race since, so he's going for a race win here. Norris still not doing great on those hard compound tyres. Carlos Sainz has now gone for a move on him through the first couple of corners. Norris once again though, better run on the outside. He's going to try and stick it, but no, he can't stick it around the outside and has to concede this position to his old teammate Sainz. We are actually struggling a bit here, and this is the thing with the ERS especially. We are really struggling. Not able to put a charge on Albon, who's doing a very good job. And if anything, actually, we have a look now. Leclerc goes for a move up the inside. We're going to, though, brake later and swing ourselves around the outside of him and keep the position. But it's very tense for us right now. I want to be looking forward, but unfortunately, at the moment, we're actually looking behind us. At the front once again, and although Hamilton's been able to lead for these first 6 laps, Russell's now coming back at him with DRS. He's going to try and go round the outside into the wall of champion chicane, and he gets back up into the lead. So that's now George Russell back up into the lead of this race. Fernando Alonso sitting there in 3rd at the moment as Verstappen's down to 4th. The two Red Bulls actually close on track for once this season as well. We are now once again behind Albon, who has now lost DRS to Norris. However, Leclerc is still behind us with DRS, and he just has so much more pace than us. And I think on this lap, we've pretty much used all our battery. Barely had any battery to use there. And yeah, we just have to concede the position to Leclerc there. But I'm not too worried. You know, we can try and charge the battery up a little bit here. to try and get back past them. Maybe Leclerc will have a go on Albon because that Ferrari looks pretty rapid. We do seem rather slow, even while using ERS and DRS. We do seem a little bit slow, so I don't know what's going on there. Our car just does not seem particularly quick down the straights here, but we're going to go for a move around the outside of Charles Leclerc. That was a bit opportunistic. He was trying to go for a move on Albon. Albon completely defended that line. They both ended up really awkwardly on the inside, and we got the position on Leclerc at the front, and Russell on lap number 10 locks up into turn 1, lets his teammate pass, and now finds himself side by side with our teammate Fernando Alonso, who's quietly having a pretty good race here, and Alonso's going to get himself up into second place, so he's now going to chase down his old rival and old teammate from way back in the day of Lewis Hamilton. He's now up into second place. We're still looking at the back of Albon here as Sainz is actually falling into our clutches a bit. I think he had a lockup earlier on a few laps ago, but we didn't see it. As now though, into turn 1, we're going to sense a move on Albon, and we go round the outside into turn 1 as we get on the curb a little bit there. The back end steps out, but we managed to stay ahead of Albon, and finally we get that position up into P8. Verstappen in P4, is having a bit of a slow race at the moment, but what's that? Looks like he's got an issue. His engine's up in smoke. He cuts over the curb, and that is Verstappen with an engine issue here in Canada. Terrible stuff for the championship leader, and he is out of this race as we fly past him now up into P8, and because Albon managed to get back past us again, which I think we'll see in a minute, but there's the confirmation. Verstappen, championship leader, out of this race, and this is what happened just before we came across Verstappen. Albon got the run on us down this straight, just got past us before we got to the yellow flag zone. Bit of a cheeky opportunistic move there for Albon. He just gets past us as we're about to, another half a second, and we would have been in the yellow flag zone. He wouldn't have been able to make the move, but down this back straight we managed to get the move back on Albon once again. A little bit of a slide out of the Wall of Champions chicane, but we've now gotten ourselves back up into what is now P7 ahead of Albon, and he's starting to struggle a little bit here, or maybe Leclerc's just starting to find some pace, as now Leclerc is trying to get the move on Albon here into this next corner, side by side between them both, but Albon does manage to stay ahead, so good defending from the tyre driver, but eventually Leclerc will get himself past. We then catch up to the back of Carlos Sainz, who I've heard over the radio has an issue. I said earlier that he locked up at one point, and he apparently has an engine problem as well, as we fairly easily breeze around the outside of him. He tries to fight us into turn 1, but unfortunately for him, he can't really do anything. We pull away from him pretty quickly because, yeah, he has got an issue there, so we will pull away in P6. Quite the gap to Perez, the next car up ahead, in P5. But, oh no, we've got a red engine. Is that our engine going up in smoke? That, I think, is our race over. Our first mechanical failure of the season. I believe Aston Martin's first mechanical failure of the season, and it's come at the expense of us. We've had a bit of a turbulent last couple of races. The crash in Imola, pole position in Monaco, but then unfortunately dropped down to 4th because of how that race turned out, getting stuck behind Hulkenberg. And then here in Canada, we have our first retirement of the season. Our pace wasn't very good here anyway, but we were going to score points, but unfortunately, no points for us today.
Extending his already record-breaking winning record, it's Lewis Hamilton to the line for victory. So after a magnificent race, we can now see the drivers making their way to the podium. Once again, it's the Silver Arrows who take the top spot, a well-earned victory for Mercedes.
It's, I believe, Mercedes' first win of the season. I think it is. I'm not sure. Did Russell get a win earlier? I can't quite remember, to be honest. It's definitely Hamilton's first win of the season, and like I said, his first win since 2021. He had 2 seasons where he didn't get a single win. He now finally wins again here in Canada, the track that I believe gave him his first ever win. was it Canada 2007 that he got his first win? Definitely one of his first wins here in his first ever season. He gets the win here today ahead of Sergio Perez, who manages to come through for a pretty good P2 in the end. So the rare occasion where Perez is actually kind of doing what he's supposed to do, unlike real life. And then Russell, unfortunately, from pole position drops down to P3. It ends up being P5 for Alonso. Norris does end up getting past him, even with that different strategy. I guess he had a bit more pace at the end and managed to catch up and get past our teammate. We finally drop out of P2 in this championship. We're now down to P3. We've been hanging on to P2 since the start of the season, a little bit undeservedly, I think, but now, yeah, we're starting to have a bit more bad luck this midway point of the season. Alonso down to P5, but it is now closing up a lot. I mean, look how close it is between Norris, Alonso, Russell. They're all within a point of each other. It's ridiculous. And Mercedes also jump Aston Martin in the constructors as well, up to second place. We're down to third at Aston Martin, and Red Bull still out in front, but still very close because of Perez not quite doing a whole lot, although he's getting there in places. But anyway, that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, please go ahead, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.